My name is Kirsten Sjoquist. I am the Director of Experience and Engagement at IONS, and welcome to Connections Live. Thank you for tuning in to hear our special guest, Robert Waggoner, who will talk about the 5 stages of lucid dreaming. I'll be your host today for our 60-minute session. So let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Robert Waggoner. Robert is the past president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams. For the past 10 years, he's been the co-editor of the online magazine, The Lucid Dreaming Experience, the only ongoing publication devoted specifically to lucid dreaming. A lucid dreamer since 1975, he has logged more than 1,000 dreams. Robert's first book, Lucid Dreaming: Gateway to the Inner Self, shows how lucid dreamers can explore the subconscious and its knowing with fascinating lucid dream examples, thought-provoking questions, exciting techniques. It's been hailed as a classic by experienced lucid dreamers. And his latest book, Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple, Tips and Techniques for Insight, Creativity, and Personal Growth, written in collaboration with Carolina McCready, has been called the perfect book for beginners. Robert enjoys educating others about the science, beauty, and potential of lucid dreaming. So welcome, Robert. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your expertise. The Zoom stage is all yours.
Well, great. I want to thank Kirsten and IONS for having me on today, along with Elena Brown in the background there, taking care of things. And I'm just so happy that so many of us can get together and talk about lucid dreaming. My good friend Jillian Thetford and I will be conducting a workshop called Lucid Dreaming and Living Lucidly that IONS will be hosting. So we're really looking forward to that. But what I wanted to talk about today was kind of a broad view of lucid dreaming. And what I found as I went deeper into lucid dreaming is that there's basically 5 stages of lucid dreaming. And this is something I decided after 30 plus years of lucid dreaming. So I didn't decide it on year 3. I decided it after 30 some years of lucid dreaming. Here you can see on the upper left hand, my first book, Lucid Dreaming: Gateway to the Inner Self. My second book, Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple, that I co-authored with Carolyn McCready. And that's the book with all the tips and techniques on how to induce and stabilize lucid dreams. And also I co-edit, along with my friend Lucy Gillis, the Lucid Dreaming Experience magazine that anyone can get for free. We've been producing this quarterly magazine for free for 22 years, and you can find it at luciddreamingmagazine.com. So most all of us know that a lucid dream could be defined like the American Psychological Association defines it, a dream in which the sleeper is aware that he or she is dreaming and may be able to influence the progress of the dream narrative. So that's an official definition for lucid dreamers. But most of us would just take it much more simply and just say, a lucid dream is any dream in which you realize within the dream you're dreaming. You literally know, hey, wait a second. This is too strange. This is a dream. I'm dreaming this. You know it's a dream. So the scientific evidence for lucid dreaming, as many of you know, comes about in the mid-70s. There was Keith Hearne at the University of Hull in England, and a couple years later, Stephen LaBerge at Stanford. And both of them separately came up with the same idea, which was that in dreaming, we have rapid eye movement. So if you had a lucid dreamer, could you bring him into the sleep lab, put rapid eye movement pads on their eyes, put some other measures to be sure they were asleep, and tell them that when you become consciously aware or lucid in the dream, just move your eyes left to right 8 times to signal that you're consciously aware within the dream. And that's exactly what happened here in this study from Stephen LaBerge. You can see that LOC and ROC are left ocular and right ocular. And the person is obviously having a dream because their eyes are moving every which way. Sometimes they're crossing, they're just moving all over the place. But here on the second row, we see suddenly the eyes are moving in tandem, the person signaling, hey, I'm consciously aware in here. And then here in the third row, he or she is signaling again, hey, I'm aware and now I'm beginning the experiment. And so that's how you can conduct an experiment within a lucid dream. Here in the fourth row, they might be signaling, hey, I'm ending the experiment. And then they might signal at the very end, I'm going to wake up now, and wake up. But this is called the eye signal verification technique. And it's basically the gold standard of providing evidence that lucid dreaming exists and that you can actually conduct scientific experiments within a lucid dream. Now, one of the studies done by Martin Dressler at the Max Planck Institute in Europe, along with his helpers, they brought a lucid dreamer into an fMRI machine, and they put on all these devices so the person wouldn't feel the vibration or hear the noise of the machine. But the person signaled that they were lucidly aware, and then they used the fMRI to try to get an idea of the brain activity when lucid dreaming. And I'm not going to read all of this, but basically what they decided was that areas of the brain that became active are the ones that commonly we associate with the idea of self-assessment, assessing yourself within a situation, the area responsible for evaluating our own thoughts and feelings. And that's what lucid dreamers do, of course. Oh, I'm aware in the lucid dream. Now what do I want to do? And also, finally, the area associated with self-perception. So you perceive yourself within this environment of the dream. You're lucidly aware, and you can decide what to do and how you want to go about doing it, especially if you know how to go about doing it. But what's interesting about that scientific evidence that basically came out around 1980 is that there's a long history of lucid dreaming, and you can see it in Buddhist dream yoga for almost 2,000 years. They use lucid dreaming connected with Buddhist philosophy to create Buddhist dream yoga. And one of their main proponents, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, he states that lucid dreaming was known in the shamanic tribe of the Bon there in Tibet, and they had been practicing it for more than 8,000 years. So I found that very interesting. Also, I put up some other slides here, like we see the pyramids at Giza. There were secret societies of the night in Egypt, and you begin to wonder, especially if you've seen some of the writings there in Egypt, if they were actually familiar with lucid dreaming, because some things would tend to say so. Also, there's groups, especially in Central and South America, who say that they have a long history of lucid dreaming. In Sufism, Ibn el-Arabi, who was in the 11th century in Spain, he was obviously a very talented lucid dreamer and wrote various books on using lucid dreaming to connect to the divine. I put in some Taoists here. One time I had a lucid dream where I was surprised to meet these gentlemen wearing black silk robes. And I live in the middle of America. I'm not familiar with Asian people wearing black silk robes or what that might be. But when I woke up, I wrote to some of my Chinese esoteric Buddhist friends and said, who wears black silk robes? I met them in a lucid dream last night. And they said, oh, those are Taoists. And I wrote back, Taoists do lucid dreaming? And they go, oh yeah, they have secret societies. And that's one of the things I'd say, even if it's Native American secret societies, there's a lot of spiritual groups that actually use lucid dreaming for their own purposes. Now, for me, if you can imagine, boy, this is going to be 50 years ago in a few years. But anyway, a long time ago when I was in high school, I was reading this book, Journey to Ixtlan, by Carlos Castaneda. And there he meets a shaman, Don Juan. And in this book, it's really interesting. Don Juan tells him to find his hands in the dream state and become aware of dreaming. And there really wasn't a technique, so I just made my own technique. I knew about the power of suggestion. So what I would do is each night before I'd go to sleep, I'd look at the palm of my hands while telling myself, tonight in my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. Tonight in my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. And I do that for 5 minutes, fall asleep. On the third night of this practice, I'm walking down my high school hallway and boom, my hands pop right in front of my face. And I go, oh, wow, my hands, this is a dream. And I went on to just have an amazing lucid dream. So I was totally hooked. But what I want to say is this was all from 1975. And so I had 5 years to learn about lucid dreaming without really any guidance except playing around in the lucid dream. And so these are kind of the stages that I went through as I focused deeper and deeper and deeper on lucid dreaming. So the first stage I call personal play, pleasure, and pain avoidance. And here we have a painting by Erasmus Bosch, The Garden of Earthly Delights. But when you first become a lucid dreamer, one thing that most everyone does is they play around. They fly through walls, they walk on water, they dance with dream figures. They might discover lucid dreaming sex, and oh my gosh, then they're involved in that. They avoid pain, they avoid negative things. And so that's how the lucid dreaming kind of begins. But also in that beginning stages too, you're trying to figure out the rules of lucid dreaming. Because a lot of times as a beginner, the lucid dream might just last for 30 seconds or whatever. So you're trying to figure out, what are the rules of lucid dreaming so I can stay in there and have a long lucid dream? How can I learn how to stabilize this? And how can I learn to kind of focus and use my mind better? And why is it sometimes I can do this, but in other lucid dreams, I can't do it? You have all these questions at the beginning, but basically you spend a lot of time just having fun. And by virtue of having that fun, especially for me back in the late 70s, I learned a lot about the principles of lucid dreaming, and I learned about the rules. So it was all for the good, but there was a lot of play in those first lucid dreams. Now, the second stage of lucid dreaming, I call manipulation, movement, and me. And I use here as the image for this a painting called American Progress by John Gast. In the United States of America, in the 1800s, there was kind of this westward expansion where they moved from the East Coast across the prairie, headed towards California and all. And that's the kind of same sense that was kind of happening in lucid dreaming. You're trying to learn how to manipulate the lucid dream better, how to influence it better, learn how to move throughout the lucid dream. You know, you can use your arms to fly like I did when I first started lucid dreaming. I flew like a bird, but then after a while, it occurred to me that why am I using my arms to fly? There's no such thing as gravity in a lucid dream. And when I began to realize that there was no such thing as gravity and that I could fly like Superman, then I could basically concentrate on where I wanted to be and fly there easily. But that's what you're beginning to learn, how to manipulate what you consider the dream environment, but also how you have to also manipulate your own beliefs and expectations in order to make things happen. But during this process, you begin to learn that there's also things that seem very difficult to manipulate. Sometimes dream figures are an example. You go tell a dream figure during this period, hey, do you know I'm dreaming you? And oftentimes they'll look at you with disgust, or they might respond like one lucid dreamer had. The dream figure said, how do you know I'm not dreaming you? And then the lucid dreamer decided to, well, see, I can fly. And the dream figure said, well, see, I can fly too. And they tried to one up each other, and neither could convince the other of whose lucid dream it really was. So you begin to have not only this kind of empowerment of your kind of ego becoming more empowered as you get into lucid dreaming, but you also get into this state of having curious events occur that are just strange and odd, and it's hard to explain to yourself. Now, this third stage, I think, is really a pivotal stage. By this time, you've learned how to stay lucid, how not to get too excited, how to remain calm, how to enhance your awareness, maintain your focus, so that you don't return to regular lucid dreaming. And now you can stay in lucid dreams for 10, 20, 30 minutes. And so you have this kind of real sense of power, and now it seems like whatever purpose you want to achieve, you can enact, and you have this kind of sense of primacy. But at the same time, you have troubling issues as well. And so I use Picasso's Guernica. It's a tragic painting in many respects about the bombing of a Basque village and all. But in this kind of cubist way, there's kind of new dimensions or dimensional ideas coming in. And that's kind of what occurs in this particular period. Even though you have a lot of power and you can kind of assert your authority, also strange things are happening too. You can't get everything to follow your commands. You begin to realize that the limitation of the self is the fundamental limitation. Your limiting beliefs, your limiting ideas, they keep you from exploring lucid dreaming more directly. And you begin to learn too that, destroying things and going over things and crushing things really isn't a brilliant way to relate to the dream. Even though you can do it, it's not intelligent. It's not really wise to go about that way. And that's probably when you get to the fourth stage. And here I use the image by M.C. Escher of the drawing hands, because at this stage, you begin to wonder who's creating the lucid dream? Who's really creating the lucid dream? For me, it occurred in 1985, after 10 years of lucid dreaming. I realized that there was a non-visible awareness behind the dream. And so how do you engage the non-visible awareness? Well, you ignore the dream figures, you ignore the dream environment, and you just shout out a question to your unconscious mind or the awareness behind the dream. Like, hey, dream, show me something interesting for me to see. And oftentimes the lucid dream will change or something interesting will appear. I remember the woman who used to run the World of Lucid Dreaming, Rebecca, she told me that she didn't like that as an opening gambit. So she changed it to, hey, dream, show me something hilarious. And she said, as soon as she announced that in the lucid dream, she was really surprised that suddenly appeared a multicolored gorilla who was walking down the highway in this really groovy, fancy walk. And she said it was the most hilarious thing she'd ever seen. And she immediately burst out laughing. But again, it wasn't her mind that created that in the sense of her ego waking self created that particular image. It was, in a sense, her larger awareness. And that's when you begin to realize that perhaps the lucid dream is a co-created environment of you and your larger awareness. Perhaps that's what's going on in lucid dreaming. And that's why you can't control everything. That's why surprising, unexpected things happened. And that period is really the time when you really begin to reflect on what lucid dreaming really means. And for a lot of people, this might be year 15 or so that they're really getting to that stage where they've had their mind blown enough that they're really beginning to reflect on what lucid dreaming is all about. But for me, I realized that there's this larger awareness. That larger awareness, along with my beliefs, expectation, focus, and intent, helped to create the reality that I then experienced. So then I began to wonder at year 20, if dreaming is a co-creation of my larger awareness and my beliefs, expectation, focus, emotions, my mindset, and if lucid dreaming is that, and if the waking world is like that, is there truly a real reality? Does a real reality exist? And that's when something strange began to happen. At night, I'd fall asleep and the entire night would be nothing but blue light. And I remember the first time it happened, I woke up and I thought, well, what do I put in my dream journal? Blue light? There is no me, no action, no symbols, no anything, just the entire night, nothing but blue light. And I remember this kept happening intermittently across the weeks. And one morning I went down to the breakfast table and my wife asked me, "What's happening to you?" And I asked her why she would bring that up. And she said that the previous night, which was a night of nothing but blue light, she said, "I looked at your face and I've never seen somebody in so much bliss before." And I told her that I'm trying to understand the actual nature of reality. That's what I want to understand, the actual nature of reality. And I'm having some really strange experiences. And anyway, I won't go into all the details. You can read about it in my first book, but this kept continuing until a really strange experience happened where, if you can imagine, awareness, aware within awareness. And then after that came to an end, I asked somebody, "What was that? Was that a lucid dream?" And they said, "No, to enter a lucid dream, go here." And I go through a tunnel of light and pop into a lucid dream. But when I woke up in the morning, I thought, what was that first part, that awareness, aware within awareness, and the light of awareness? And it wasn't until 3 years later that I heard Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche speak about the ultimate goal of Buddhist dream yoga is the clear light of awareness. And I thought, whoa, that is wild. So one reason I wanted to bring this up and all is because of this quote by Steve Jobs at Apple. He said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future." And so those dots are kind of those life events that occur along the way that seem important, that seem significant, but you only understand the pattern after you've gone many decades. Then you can look back and go, "Oh my gosh, it's interesting how this person connected to this event and that person connected to this event. And without that, then this wouldn't have happened." It's really what you also see in lucid dreaming. Sometimes you wonder why the things happened in the lucid dream that they do. But what I would tell you, and what I truly feel is the case, is that in many respects, you're being educated in how to be a better lucid dreamer. Your inner awareness is helping you along the path as long as you don't leave the path. But that's part of the problem with the path. And that's what I wanted to get into, the stumbling blocks of lucid dreaming. First, it's a long process of discovery. I mean, I went for 5 years just having fun, playing around, learning a little bit about lucid dreaming, but not a whole lot. And so it does take a while to kind of keep going and going and going in order for you to understand lucid dreaming better and how to manipulate within that environment. Then the second point is, along the way, there's temptations. You could spend your entire lucid dreaming career doing nothing but having lucid dream sex. And I'm sure there's some people out there who basically have discovered that, and that's what they do. So basically that they get entrapped by this kind of temptation to just do that and nothing else. Other people, they get into lucid dreaming and then they have some lucid dream that's really powerful or full of energy, and then it creates a fear and they cannot get beyond that fear. And then there's other people who just have defenses, that the lucid dream is asking them to change their limited beliefs and grow as a person, but they are against it. They are defending themselves against this idea of personal growth. And so that's the other stumbling block that you find with lucid dreamers that keeps them from going the whole distance. Also, I'd say that assumptions end up being a little bit of a problem with lucid dreaming. Because, like, think of our caterpillar here. Our caterpillar may not understand that if it keeps going like this, it's going to pupate and become a chrysalis, and then one day will turn into a butterfly, and this monarch butterfly will fly all the way to Mexico and all. So, but your assumptions when you're in the field, basically all you know is that field that you're in. Oh, I chew milkweed. That's all I do. Chew milkweed. That's all I do. It's just this field. You don't understand that there's something bigger out there that's potentially waiting for you. because we get limited by our assumptions, by our limited view. And that I would also say is a stumbling block. Plus, we can also have many other assumptions. Dreams have no value, dreams have no meaning, and on and on and on. So there's tons of assumptions that you have to work through. But finally, you get to the stage of intent and will. What's your intent for lucid dreaming? And that's what's really oftentimes will guide a person deeper and deeper along their journey. And so I just wanted to bring up some ideas of intent. Now, here's one, a historical letter, Letters of St. Augustine. This is letter 159, about a physician in Carthage, almost 1700 years ago. And this physician, Gennadius, had become a Christian, and he wondered, how could the body be resurrected? Because he would look out in the desert outside of Carthage and see bodies just wasting away, dead bodies out there in the desert, and the bones bleached in the sun. So how could that body be resurrected? And so one night he falls asleep and he sees a radiant youth and finds that interesting. Then the next night he's going along and he sees the same radiant youth. And the youth asks him, "Where have we met?" And Gennadius thinks, "Oh, we met in last night's dream." And the youth says, "Yes, you're correct." So at this point, Gennadius knows that he's asleep at home in bed. Then the youth and he begin to have a conversation where the youth reminds him, "Where's your body right now?" And he says, "It's asleep in bed." And he goes, "What about your eyes?" And he asks, "What then are the eyes with which you see me now?" And Gennadius realizes that he's seen even though his eyes are closed. And then the youth tells him that after death, there will be a faculty of perception by which you shall still perceive. And so Gennadius woke with that, and this got sent around the Mediterranean area and ended up in this letter of St. Augustine talking about how this person resolved their concern about resurrection. But basically, it was through a lucid dream, that there'd be a faculty of perception by which you shall still perceive after death. Now, a lot of us have our own intent for lucid dreaming, and so for some of us, it might be using lucid dream to enhance our skills. This is very common in Europe, where I think there was a study that showed that 9% of professional German athletes, they use lucid dreaming to become better at their athletic events. They practice in their lucid dreams, and that builds up their skill base. Also, some people use lucid dreaming to access creativity. So if you're a musician or an artist, you might become lucidly aware and find the most incredible art you can create, or hear the most incredible music you can create. Other lucid dreamers have used lucid dreaming to resolve emotional issues like recurring nightmares and PTSD. They might use lucid dreaming to get rid of phobias like a fear of snakes or a fear of heights or a fear of flying. There's a lot of examples of that occurring. Also, some lucid dreamers have learned how to use lucid dreaming to seek out a physical healing. So they become consciously aware in the dream, and they use their awareness to intend healing energy on their body. And sometimes they wake and their body has changed overnight. And you can also see the proof of concept in some of Stephen LaBerge's work, where he asked lucid dreamers to change their body within a lucid dream state and had success with that. So you see the proof of the concept. I would encourage people to use lucid dreaming to access an inner awareness. When you reach out to this larger awareness, "Hey, dream, show me something important," or "Hey, dream, let me experience unconditional love." When you begin to experiment and play around with the knowledge and creativity of this non-visible unconscious mind or larger awareness, it's truly fantastic. As we talked about, a lot of spiritual traditions use it for spiritual growth, and a lot of us use it for our own personal transformation, because lucid dreaming is an open platform. Whatever area you're interested in, you can use a lucid dream and explore it there. So I'm going to end with a funny thing that occurred to me after about, I don't know, 25 years of lucid dreaming. One night, I could feel on my face these little touches, like someone was standing on my face. And I opened my eyes, and it was a butterfly. And then I got a side view of my head. I don't know if that was from the mirror or whatever, but I got a side view of my head. And from out of the back of my head was this chrysalis. And it was the wildest thing to watch this butterfly emerge from this chrysalis of my mind and flap its wings for the first time and then take off flying. It was truly one of those phenomenal transformations that I never would have expected. Just like when I see a little caterpillar, I don't expect it to be a butterfly, like a monarch butterfly, and fly 1,000 miles away to Mexico. So that's kind of the broad overview of lucid dreaming. I just want to thank everyone for paying attention. We're going to open it up for questions now. And again, I just want to remind people that Jillian Thetford and I are going to conduct a lucid dreaming and living lucidly course. So let's open it up.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Robert. You know, I've seen you lecture many, many times over the years, and I always learn something new, many things new. So thank you for that. We have so many good questions. We're going to do our best to get to as many of them as possible. Let's start with a really foundational question from Debbie. Can everyone lucid dream?
Wow. You know, they've done studies, and it appears that 51% of the population is naturally having lucid dreams already. And about 25% of that group are having frequent lucid dreams. I think virtually everyone could learn to lucid dream. I've had workshops where I've dealt with people in their 70s who have never had a lucid dream. And before the workshop was over, they managed to have lucid dreams. It's really a matter of focus, intent, and also knowledge. So I feel it's possible. I think it's the case.
Great. Anna says, due to a chronic illness, I'm on a number of prescription drugs, so have difficulty manifesting dreams, asking for suggestions. And then Carol also asked if sleeping pills like Ambien can interfere with your dreams.
Yeah, sometimes when you look at the prescription drugs that you might be taking, in the side effects, it'll say may reduce dream recall or may reduce dreaming or affect dreaming somehow. And so that's definitely a possibility, and that does occur. So you can always talk to your doctor about that, and maybe there's something else that wouldn't have that effect.
Great. What do you think the best strategy to stabilize a lucid dream as a beginner? This is from Cosmin, who says, I gain dream lucidity often. However, I get too excited and keep waking up within a very short period of time from gaining the lucidity.
Right. So what I always encourage people, especially beginners, when you become lucidly aware, remember to stay calm. And so you might want to announce that in the lucid dream. I'll stay calm. I'm staying calm. Because almost anything vocalized in a lucid dream immediately happens, immediately appears. And so if you tell yourself, stay calm, that really helps and will reduce the emotion. Also, if you became lucid because you saw something exciting, what I would suggest, look down at the floor, look at the ground, look at your hand, something boring, and don't look at the super exciting thing that's making you so excited. But that's the first step, reduce your emotions. The second step is enhance your awareness and maintain your focus. And that's how you really learn how to have lucid dreams that go on for 10, 20, 30 minutes.
Here's an interesting one. Alan says, are there any traps to be aware of, like the movie Inception, where one permanently wants to live in the dream state?
Well, you know, what traps exist, I would say, are traps of our own mind or of our own mental making. And so one trap is our fear. If we fear something, then we're less likely to do it. And so oftentimes I'll see lucid dreamers, they're going along, doing just fine, but then they have a lucid dream that's so powerful or so incredible that they develop a little bit of fear. And then what happens? Oh, they stop lucid dreaming for 2 or 3 months. And it's not until they go back and reconcile that issue that was brought up in that lucid dream that they can move forward. So you really have to look at your mind. I would say the mind has the traps. And so there's nothing here to fear but fear itself.
And Laura says, I'm always just on the edge of lucidity in my dreams. It's very frustrating. What can I do within the dream to make myself fully lucid?
Well, that's a good point. In lucid dreaming and awareness itself, there's levels. So sometimes we're semi-lucid. We kind of get that, oh yeah, this must be a dream because Uncle Bob's there and Uncle Bob passed away 10 years ago. But then we just go along with whatever's happening. So what I would suggest, it helps to have a goal that you want to achieve. Because when you get right to the edge, then you can think, well, wait a second. If Uncle Bob is here, then this must mean I'm lucid dreaming. Oh, now's my goal. Now's my opportunity to talk to the awareness behind the dream, to find out what that dream figure symbolizes or whatever it is. But it helps to have a goal because a lot of people come to the doorway, look in, and don't do anything else. So you got to have a goal of what you want to do when you're inside, and that'll get you inside.
Tamara says, what is the fast track to become a lucid dreamer experiencing being aware of awareness now versus waiting 5 or 20 years and the learning curve?
You know, in my second book, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, and also in the course, I developed a technique I call developing a lucid mindset. And that's what took me, I started out, having 1, 2, 3 lucid dreams a month. And then over the years, I realized, oh, I have to develop a lucid mindset. It's a mindfulness practices during the day. And I got up to having 30 lucid dreams a month. So some nights I'd have 2 or 3 lucid dreams. So I wasn't having lucid dreams every night, but to go from that, to start out with 1 or 2 a month and 5 or 6 years later, having 30 a month was really quite something. So developing a lucid mindset is what I would say. It's a mindfulness technique you can do during the day.
Great. Vincent is asking if there's a device you can put on your head to produce flashes to get you into the dreaming state so that you can become lucid because it knows you're dreaming. I know that Stephen LaBerge had something. I don't know if it's still available. Are there other devices and what's your experience with them?
So probably 20 years ago, Stephen LaBerge and some others invented this thing called the Nova Dreamer that you would put on your face before you went to sleep. It would identify when you're having rapid eye movement, and then it would start flashing red lights. And so you'd see the red lights and become lucidly aware. That was the idea. And so a lot of people used it and all. It's kind of an old clunky device. Now there's other people who are trying to come out with newer devices. But what I would say, this is kind of a caveat emptor where the buyer has to beware because a lot of people are just trying to sell things and they may work well, they may not work well. I remember one time a guy sent me his prototype. And so the first night I tried to program it, put it on my head, but it fell off in the middle of the night. And so I thought, then I realized I hadn't even got it programmed correctly. The next night I really programmed it and got it on my head. I'm driving down 13th Street and all of a sudden I see it snowing and a car goes into the ditch and these red lights are going off. And I think, red lights? Oh my God, this is a lucid dream. And so I float out of the car and go on and have a lucid dream. But when I woke up in the morning, I still hadn't got the machine to work correctly. And I knew it hadn't worked at all, that it was just my expectation to see red lights that made me see red lights. So again, I don't mind technology. Technology is great. But again, the mind plays a big role in whether or not you have lucid dreaming.
Maybe we can just pretend we have the technology on our head and see if that works. Michaela says, is your lucid mindset written out in your book, or do you have articles or something on the web that people could check out to learn more about the lucid mindset?
Right. I think you'd have to read the entirety of my second book, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, co-authored with Carolyn McCready, to really understand what it means to develop a lucid mindset.
It's a deeper process, not a single thing.
Yeah, it helps to understand where my mind was at such that I could develop a lucid mindset, such that the techniques made sense and all, because developing a lucid mindset asks you to take on some new assumptions that you might be in opposition to. And so you got to understand how I came to realizing developing a lucid mindset would work. So.
Great. Mark asks if you have any mantras to help you not get spooked.
Well, fear is the mind killer. That's from a poem. But what I would say about getting spooked, sometimes it helps is to get into the feeling. What is it that I find spooky about this, or what do I fear about this, and start to kind of try to resolve it in your mind. Because again, if you have a fear, that'll keep you from making progress. And so you really want to resolve those kind of fears before you move forward.
Keith asks, what are false awakenings? I arose from having a lucid dream, opened the door to find my dream journal, and boom, I was in someone else's house. I walked around and then woke up in my real house.
Yep. So false awakenings are when we think we have awakened to waking reality, but we're actually still in a dream. And then eventually we wake up. So that's a false awakening. Now, here's why I think they happen. And this was an idea that I heard from Stephen LaBerge. Oftentimes, what we expect to happen in a lucid dream happens. So if we expect to fly through the wall easily, we fly through the wall easily. So what happens is, as we become better at lucid dreaming, we begin to realize when a lucid dream is going to end. The lucid dream gets shaky or whatever, and then we expect to wake up. But in that expecting to wake up, we create a new dream of waking up in bed. And we might wake up in bed and now we have pink carpet, or we wake up in bed and walk into the hallway and, we have 3 dogs and 5 cats, where'd they all come from? And we realize we're still dreaming. So I think that's why false awakenings happen. We expect something to occur. We expect to wake up. And so we create a dream of waking up. And you can use a false awakening, though. You're still lucidly aware to some degree. You can, in a false awakening, you go, oh, well, here's my second chance to keep the lucid dream going.
Jeff talks about when you're trying to affect what's happening in a dream. Could you be trying to affect an area of reality that is in the domain of the collective subconscious? So there are competing attempts to control.
Well, that's interesting. So this whole idea of the collective conscious or the collective subconscious, it's certainly a theory and one that Carl Jung gets to. I would say that I have noticed that there's certain limitations, and I bring some of these up in my first book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, where I talk about this idea of mutual lucid dreaming. And that's where I bring up that there might be certain barriers in terms of engaging certain ideas and whatever. They're just out of bounds. Yeah.
Alicia says, I've had lucid dreams naturally since I was a baby in my crib. I often felt I was meeting real people, whether alive or dead. Do you think we can meet real people and even arrange to meet them?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I would say it's relatively rare, but I would also say it's not impossible. It's quite a bit more complicated than one might expect. It's interesting. I've received some lucid dream stories from expectant couples who became lucidly aware and met their baby who was yet to be born. And sometimes the baby would tell them what name it wanted to have and what it planned to do in its early life. And so it's really interesting to think about that. I think that's one that could be explored even in experiments. But yeah, that's definitely a fascinating concept.
Demi asks, is there a connection between the world of dreaming / lucid dreaming and the world of the afterlife?
Well, so a lot of lucid dreamers become lucidly aware when they meet a deceased person, because they'll see grandma and think, wait a second, grandma passed 10 years ago. How can this be? And so oftentimes they'll become lucid. Now, what I would suggest at that point, you do not know, is grandma just a dream symbol, a projection of your mind, a symbol of your grief or whatever, or you're missing her or whatever? Or is that grandma in some after-death spiritual state? And that's when I would say you have to go up and ask questions like, Grandma, who's the next person in our family who's going to have a baby? And she'll go, oh, you haven't even met her yet. It's going to be the girlfriend of your brother John, and she's going to have a little boy. If you get those kind of questions answered and then later confirm them as valid, then you have some choice, or you have some idea that you actually engaged a person who's in the after-death state. So it is quite interesting. One thing that a lot of lucid dreamers have noticed, though, when you interact with an after-death dream figure, is that sometimes they appear at a different age than they normally are when they died. So like my grandmother, I don't see her as a 70-year-old woman like I knew her when she was alive. I see her as a 30-year-old woman with little pixies flying around her head because she was Scottish. And so if I'm ever in a dream and I see little pixies flying around somebody's head, I go over there and, oh, it's Grandma Jenny. And then we can have a conversation. So in any case, you have to realize that these are all a little bit more complicated than just meeting somebody on the sidewalk at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So
Amaya asks, have you encountered people with aphantasia, lack of visual thinking, that can lucid dream?
Right. Yes, I have. And in fact, this magazine that I co-edit, the Lucid Dreaming Experience, in our next issue here in March, I'm interviewing a blind lucid dreamer. So think of somebody who is blind from birth. They don't have a lot of visual imagery to connect with, but yet they have lucid dreams. And they had lucid dreams by reading my book in Finnish with my Finnish co-author, Anna Riihimäki. And it's really fascinating, just the whole idea of a blind lucid dreamer. So you don't have to, not everything is symbols. Sometimes it's feeling. It's like, oh, I'm stepping over that puddle, but I feel like I'm floating. Oh, that feeling of floating makes me think, am I dreaming this? Oh yeah, of course I'm dreaming this because I just floated 30 feet over a puddle. So it doesn't have to be a visual symbol. It can be a feeling. It can be a conceptual change that somehow things are different. So there's a lot of ways to become lucid. But if you want to believe that something's a deficit or going to make it hard, then your mind will make that so for you. So let it go and explore these other ways.
Oh, I look forward to reading about that blind person's dream experience. You said that's in the upcoming March issue of your magazine?
It'll be the March issue of the Lucid Dreaming Magazine.com.
Which is online and free, correct? It's available.
Online and free. And
yeah.
People also can submit their own reader-submitted lucid dreams or their own articles on lucid dreaming, and we'll consider it.
Let's take a little break here. We've got about 10 more minutes for questions. We'll give Robert a little breather while I share a couple of announcements about upcoming events that are happening with IONS. A lot of exciting things are around the corner. First and foremost, I am delighted to invite you to register for Robert's upcoming workshop with IONS, Lucid Dreaming and Living Lucidly, Gateway to the Inner Self. This is a 1-month workshop. It includes self-paced video lessons, so you can do those at any time you like, along with a weekly live interactive session with Robert. So you can ask a lot of questions and dive into the particulars. There is also an online forum where you can post your comments and questions. And Robert and his co-facilitator, Jillian Thetford, are super active on that forum. This is a really, really wonderful way to really explore your own experience with lucid dreaming. Some more questions. Here is one from Prashanti who says, do people forget lucid dreams sometimes? How do I know if I got a lucid dream and I just forgot about it? I suppose to know the answer to this, you'd have to eventually remember that you've maybe had a lucid dream, but...
Yeah, I normally in a lucid dream, if I had a big lucid dream and got an answer or did my experiment, I'd tell myself to wake up immediately and write it down. But I have noticed that on occasion, I've kept going with the lucid dream, then it might have turned into a regular dream, and I never told myself to wake up. And so it would be an hour later, I'd be in the shower after I woke up, and suddenly I'd remember, oh yeah, I became lucid for about 5 minutes in that one dream, and then I lost my lucidity and returned. So yeah, you can forget lucid dreams. So that's why having good dream recall is so important.
Are night sweats common with lucid dreaming?
You know, I have never heard people bring up night sweats. So if you're having that experience, it might be something unique to the person. I just have never heard lucid dreamers bring that up.
Keith asks, what are false awakenings?
Yeah, so a false awakening, you think that you are awake, you see your bedroom, but all of a sudden you realize you have pink carpet, and then you go, oh my God, I'm still dreaming. And then hopefully you wake up. That's a false awakening. It means that you were having a lucid dream, thought you were going to wake up, but instead you continued the dream, but now you're seeing your dream bedroom or whatever. And so it's false.
Angelina asks if you will teach the lucid mindset in your upcoming workshop.
Yes, I definitely will. And I'm always happy to talk to people more about it there and kind of help them along with the process. Yeah. In the workshop, we'll bring up about 10 different ways of becoming lucidly aware, because everyone's different. Some people are more visual, some people are more power of suggestion, other people are more want to use mindfulness. So we have something for everybody, I feel.
Dusty asks if you'll please repeat your book titles, the book title about the one where you're talking about the lucid mindset, and then what order do you suggest people read your books? You know, which is the most recently released, so on.
Yeah, the most recent one is this one, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple. It's also in French and German and Finnish and Chinese and some other languages. But it's the one that has all the tips and techniques about how to become lucid and how to explore lucid dreaming, how to stabilize the lucid dream. So you probably should read that book first and get deeper into lucid dreaming before you read my first book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, which is the one that kind of blows people's minds when they read it. They go, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I'm reading in this book. But again, it's all based on deep experience of myself and others, and also science. Yeah.
Have you visited other worlds through lucid dreaming?
You know, it was interesting. One time I met a woman, and I was with this woman was right in front of me, and then the man she was with had his eyes closed like he was asleep. And the woman looked like she was about 35, and she told me that 100 years to me is 1 year to her. And so I was lucidly aware and thought, oh my God, this woman's telling me she's 3,500 years old. And she goes on to say, I want you to understand that ancient spiritual knowledge is returning to your system. And I said, what? And she said, I want you to understand that ancient spiritual knowledge is returning to your system. And I said, okay, thank you, and let it go. After that, I had a few more lucid dreams where I would see her and her husband. But that was really a unique one, because normally I don't read a lot of science fiction books anymore, like I did as a kid. And the idea of meeting somebody who 100 years to me is 1 year to her was really not on my radar. So that was really a unique one. But again, can I prove that she was from another dimension or time space reality? Not really. I do hope that ancient spiritual knowledge is returning to the system, because we could definitely use some more spiritual knowledge.
Indeed. Tim says, is there an end goal to the practice of lucid dreaming? And in your current opinion, what's the very best way to induce one for ourselves? And thank you so much for presenting this program.
Well, so the end goal, when you look at my 5 stages, is once you come to a realization that perceived experience is a co-creation of you and your larger awareness, whether you're dreaming, lucid dreaming, or in the waking state, then at that point, you'll try to discover, does a real reality exist? There's a real reality that's not predicated on my beliefs, expectation, my focus, my intent, my self-history. Does a real reality exist? And that's when you'll get to a very unique place. So that would be, in many respects, the ultimate goal. But again, for some people, the ultimate goal is resolving their nightmares, or the ultimate goal is healing themselves of some issue that the doctors can't heal themselves of. What was the second question to that?
Oh gosh, I've already zipped past it. I apologize. I'm sorry. We are at the top of the hour. We have so many wonderful questions left. I'm very sorry we weren't able to get to them today, but thank you to all of you who tuned in to be part of this conversation. Thank you, Robert, for this amazing overview. I know you know, in your nearly 50 years of doing this work, you have so much to offer, and I'm really grateful that you spend this time with us. And I hope that many, many folks will consider joining us for the upcoming workshop. Robert, anything else to say about the workshop or the practice?
You know, the workshop is a lot of fun. I just love helping people along with their lucid dreaming, helping some people get over some hurdles, some people to have their first lucid dream, some people for the first time to interact with their unconscious mind or the larger awareness. And we've even had cases of people who've used it for healing, whether emotional healing or physical healing. But again, it's just a lot of fun. So I hope that those people who have an interest, please come, and Jillian and I will do our best to help you out.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.